The Philadelphia Eagles showed the whole nation tonight on a national stage why they are still the beasts of the East. Recapping the game right here on the Locked On Eagles postgame show.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome on into this post-game edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every day. I'm your host, Gino Camilleri, and I welcome on in all of our everydayers, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day, or your first watch. But it doesn't matter as long as you're here, taking in the victory over the Washington Commanders. The Eagles win 26-18. We're going to break down the game, what went right, what went wrong, how good was the defense, how bad was the offense, what's going on with Jake Elliott. But before we do that, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You could start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, to get started, let's start off from the beginning of this football game. Thursday night football, the Eagles are coming off of a game where they absolutely dominated the Dallas Cowboys. 5 wins in a row. The Steelers eke out a win over the Commanders, and you still have a chance. And you still have a chance to make this game count for first place. And that's exactly what happened tonight. In the beginning, your offense looked dreadful. You get the ball to receive and start the game, and what happens? They fail to score points on the first drive yet again. Heck, they failed to score points the entire first half. The offense could not get in a rhythm whatsoever in this game. But the thing that gave them a fighter's chance was the defense. I said to my wife, and she didn't get the analogy because, of course, she isn't a Floyd Mayweather boxing fan. But those of you who do participate in watching boxing, when you watch Floyd Mayweather box, he was one of the most boring boxers you've ever seen. He's not Mike Tyson, a guy that's going to go in there, boom, one hit, knockout. Floyd Mayweather was a defensive boxer who just sat there and calculated his opponent and waited for things to go his way. And right when he could land his shot to win, he would. And that's what the Eagles did tonight. They played football like Floyd Mayweather boxed. Their defense kept them in it all night long. All night long. And Saquon Barkley, 2 knockout punches to win the football game. But the story of the game comes down to the defense. Because from the jump, first drive of the game for Washington, 3 and out. After that, Washington goes 4 plays in just under 2 minutes and scores a touchdown, which was arguably the easiest touchdown that the Eagles defense has let up since the bye week. And the touchdowns have been minimal against the Eagles defense. Heck, another game where they only allow 2 touchdowns, one of which comes in garbage time. But where the Eagles offense just fails and fails and fails to respond to adversity early in games, the Eagles defense, they might get hit once, but they're going to lock right back in. And that's exactly what they did. They got off the field time and time and time and time again. Take away the last drive where Washington scored in garbage time. The Eagles got off the field on every third down outside of the one where Washington had that touchdown drive. And what was the biggest drive of the game for the Eagles defense? Washington is in the red zone. They have an opportunity on 2nd and 1 to potentially pick up another first down, potentially inch closer to the end zone. No. The Eagles defense, they played and they stood in what was arguably the biggest stand of all season when it came to the defense. 2nd and 1, and they were able to get off the field on 3 straight downs and make Washington have a turnover on downs. That was big boy football. That was NFC East football. That was winning the NFC East caliber football. If you wanted to figure out who was the better team tonight, look at that drive. Look at that sequence of 4 plays where Washington needed 1 yard. 1 yard to stay in the game. They're clawing, scratching. They had their backs against the wall. And the Eagles defense, they said, "What? Guess what? I'm going to smash that wall down, and I'm going to throw you through the darn wall." Because that's what they did. Jaden Daniels could do nothing tonight. Nothing. Jaden Daniels went 22 of 32, 191, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Decent. But when you contextualize it, Austin Eckler had 8 of those receptions and 89 of those yards. Tight ends, Zach Ertz and John Bates, 8 of those receptions. Let me do some quick math. 47 plus 17. That gets us to 64 of those yards. The receivers, Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry, the guy who has decimated the Eagles for years. I told David Harrison the other day on the crossover that the Eagles got somebody that could cover Terry. Quinyon Mitchell. Quinyanamo Bay. The kid shut him down. Terry McLaurin, 1 reception, 10 yards. Olamide Zacchaeus, 1 reception for 10 yards. De'Ami Brown, 1 reception for 4 yards. Noah Brown, 1 reception for 4 yards. In total, Washington's wide receivers, 4 receptions. 4 receptions for 28 yards. When has that ever happened? When has the Eagles secondary been that good? I don't care about the yards to Austin Eckler. One was a huge explosive play where Zach Bond in conflict. They hold him up well. All of a sudden, Austin Eckler gets out to the flat. They miss a tackle. Gets a big explosive play. I don't care about that. Because when Terry McLaurin has 1 catch all day, 1 catch all day, how could you ever complain about the defense? When Jaden Daniels, the far and away offensive rookie of the season, looks average. I mean, he looked average. The Eagles were making him skip balls to his players, getting the ball out way too quickly, landed those body blows. They were just playing defensive football. Reed Blankenship gets the interception at the end. The sacks started to come about. Josh Sweat gets 1. They grab a couple more. That team looked average. And the Eagles defense looked elite. Eagles offense, 3/4 of the game, subpar. Very subpar. We'll talk about the offense. But we have to give Vic Fangio and this defense his credit. This defense it's better than 2022. It is. You never had the secondary like this in 2022. As good as Slay and Bradbury were, respectively. As good as Chauncey and a rookie Reed were, they're not as good as this secondary right now. You can't pass on this secondary. You can't do it. The linebackers are great in coverage. You can't run on this team. Brian Robinson, 16 carries for 63 yards. Austin Eckler, 2 carries for 7 yards. Jeremy McNichols, 3 carries for 5 yards. Brian Robinson was the best of the day, averaging 3.9 yards per tote. This defense is really good. And this defense is what is going to win them a Super Bowl if they were to win one. Because we have seen countless examples of them this season winning new football games. And not just winning, playing dominant portions of football. Playing downright dominant. And even before they were really, really good, which was after the bye, that New Orleans game, there was a red-hot New Orleans team. 3rd game of the season. Anything could happen. Went in there, stomped on their throat. What'd they do tonight? Took some body blows, but they waited. They were like Floyd Mayweather. They just kept giving their offense a chance, kept giving their offense a chance, kept giving their offense a chance. They finally get some sacks, finally get some turnovers. This defense It's everybody. It's everybody. I mean, heck, dude, even Bryce Huff with a full club on his arm, his left hand is taped up. He gets a pressure at the end of the game there. Brandon Graham, you sure you want to retire, dude? Like, you're really good. Jalen Carter is a freaking menace. Jordan Davis is the reason that the linebackers are so good behind him. Nolan Smith. Whew, he's figuring it out, man. Everybody is figuring it out on this defense. And Vic Fangio, or as Kirk Herbstreit said, Vic Fangino, show is now hosted by Fangino Camilleri. Vic Fangio's got this thing figured out, man. Like, this is the guy you have been waiting for to be your defensive coordinator. The way Howie Roseman brought in this personnel. Howie Roseman, another brilliant evening for him. Another brilliant evening for Howie Roseman. Everywhere. You got to pay Zach Bond today. Like, pay him right now. Nakobe Dean looks excellent. Reed Blankenship and Cooper DeGee and the exciting whites. Like, the kids can play football, man. And that's the emphasis. The kids, the youth. It is a youth movement on defense. They got one older guy in Slay. BG is your rotational player. Outside of that, it's all the youth. The youth is why the defense is playing well. They got some dogs. They got guys that tackle well. And even in a game where the tackling wasn't the best early on, they figured it out. Everything that went wrong for the defense early on, they figured it out in the blink of an eye. The offense, let's talk about the offense. We're going to get into what was going on with the Eagles offense all night when we come back, but stick around here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. This episode of LOE is brought to you by our good friends over at Mint Mobile. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. And with Mint Mobile, you're not going to have to go into the store and wait around in lines and yada, yada, have to do the whole run around with the salesperson. No. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected charges. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. Ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedon. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month. mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. This episode is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. If you rode with the Eagles tonight, they covered. Good teams win. Great teams cover. The Eagles did that. -4.5. And if you rode with them over at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, and you were a new customer, and you made your first $5 wager, you would have got $150 in bonus bets. And if you haven't, well, you can bet on any college game this weekend, any of the Sunday games. You can sit back and relax. If the Eagles don't have to play, have some fun. So when you're in the middle of the game and you get that hunch, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com today to join, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Eagles fans, welcome on back. Our everydayers here to the Locked On Eagles podcast. I'm your host, Gino Camilleri, here recapping the Eagles' Thursday night football victory, 26-18 over the division rival Washington Commanders. Your Philadelphia Eagles, first place, baby. It feels so good. They move to 8-2. Washington moves to 7-4. The Eagles are on a 6-game win streak since the bye. And Talk about somebody that was not on a streak tonight. The Eagles offense, they could not get into a rhythm. They could not put any sort of streak together for the entirety of the football game. Early on, patented. The Eagles look okay in their first drive. They're moving down the football field. They're on fringe field goal range. And guess what? Mekhi Becton holding call. Penalties kill that drive. Next drive, things get going a little bit. Third down, Jalen Hurts sack. And that seemed to be the theme. Penalties, sacks, missed opportunities, drops. Jalen Hurts goes 18 for 28, 221 yards. That does not tell you the story of what went on with this offense. It was painful. I tweeted this out during the game. It felt, and I went through this a couple weeks ago, so I know this pain. If you've ever been starting up your lawnmower and it goes ring ding 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 ring ding 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 ring ding 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 ding, and it won't turn over, and you're trying over and over and over again, and it just will not start. Or you could talk about your car in the dead of winter, you just can't get it to turn. That's what the Eagles offense felt like. It's like, we know this thing can turn on. Like, we know the lights work. We know the power on this offense. We got A.J. Brown. We hit him with this 25-yard slant route. Easy, pitch and catch football. Why can't we do more of that? You find Devontae Smith on a slant route. You can't do more of that. Like, why couldn't they do the easy things? It felt early on, everything came difficult to them. Felt like in the middle of the game, everything came difficult to them. The runs weren't being blocked up timely. They were always like one step off on their blocks, working like poetry and synchronizing perfectly for Saquon to break it. Devontae Smith with the odd drop on the sideline, something he rarely does. Jahan Dotson with a big-time drop on third down. The Eagles offense, 10 of 17 on third down. You think that's pretty good. You think 434 yards on offense, you're able to put up more than 26 points and more than 3 points in the first half. I think the real puzzling part that put this team back was that trick play. That was something that, from that moment on, the offense did not look right. They were moving. They were okay. They weren't perfect, but they were moving the ball. And then all of a sudden, you're past half field, and Kellen Moore says, "I don't think we got the horses to run in this game. Let's run a trick play. Let's run a double reverse flea flicker where Saquon Barkley doesn't even make any sort of motion to try and run the ball, just gets it, pitches it to Devontae. The play's already blown up. And then Jalen Hurts gets his head put into the dirt. First of two times that happened tonight. And nothing. It felt like their cage was really rattled from that moment on. Like, maybe we are getting a little bit out coached here. I think Kellen Moore's game plan was horrific. The offensive game plan was god-awful. Just god-awful. And this is a game where they just acquired Marshawn Lattimore. Marshawn Lattimore wasn't playing. Yeah, you got Benjamin St-Juste, but you've seen him before. You've seen St-Juste and what he can do. And Noah Igbenogany, like, are these guys that you're really, like, worried about? Mike Sainristil, good rookie, but not world beaters on the outside. And it felt like the big plays were just simple things where your guy won a slant route and went down the field. Every little thing that the Eagles are really good at most of the time, like the one that was really off is Jalen Hurts rolling to his left. A.J. Brown wide open on a comeback route. And Jalen just can't get that ball across his body, can't get it to him, skips it. They just were not in sync. And I know we're complaining in a game where they almost put up 450 yards. You have to complain when they played the way that they did in that first half. But they took care of the football. Jalen Hurts, no turnovers tonight. 5 or 6 games since the bye. He has not turned the ball over. Very good stuff. Kenny Gainwell, in terms of role players, for the longest part of that game, I thought he was your MVP. causes a fumble on a kickoff as almost returns it, almost gets it back, has a nice kickoff return as well. He averaged 10.8 yards a tote tonight. But the killer, the guy that got it done. Oh, before we talk about Saquon, Dallas Goedert almost cost the team in a big way. Him holding the ball like LaShawn McCoy, running that ball down the field. 5 points of pressure. Tuck that thing, squeeze the elbow. Nobody punches that ball out. Thank goodness for Grant Calcaterra. Goddard owes Calcaterra maybe meals for the week. But the one guy, the guy who you know can be consistent, and he is the embodiment of Floyd Mayweather, that defensive boxer, the guy that just, it might not be pretty. He'll go for a yard, 2 yard. He might get tripped up by his shoelaces. But then all of a sudden, when you need a huge run, Saquon Barkley at the end of the game, that's what elite football players do. That's what elite football players do. They turn runs that should be an average gain, about like 10, 15 yards, and just kill angles and score 2 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley is everything and then some. To be Joe Shane right now, to be the Mara family, to be the Giants, and to see that happen against another divisional opponent. Saquon Barkley, 3-0 in the divisional games this season. And he's been pretty good in all of them outside of last week against Dallas, but still had a pretty good spin move last week. This week, what more can you say about him, man? 26 carries, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 receptions for 52 yards. Guy goes for nearly 200 all-purpose yards on 28 touches. Howie Roseman, have a night. Have a night, Howie. Saquon Barkley showed off once again on a national stage why you make that type of move. He was what won you that game. If you don't have him when your quarterback isn't looking great and your wide receivers are just guys in this game, it felt like, and Dallas Goedert's making some mistakes. All reliable, baby. Saquon Barkley. He is the truth. Those 2 runs, it might not look super impressive, but I think the second one especially, that's a beautiful, beautiful teach tape on how to run inside zone. He had to wait until the gaps got outside, stretched it. Landon Dickerson makes 2 blocks in one play, putting these guys on the ground. Saquon puts his foot in the dirt, cuts back off tackle, gets into the end zone, crushes the heart of Washington, and the Eagles go up 2 scores. Having most of those points come in the fourth quarter, if they were to come in any quarter, you want it when it matters. The Eagles offense, they had to play 15 good minutes tonight, and they were able to do that. We're going to wrap up the postgame show, talk a little bit more, what went right, what went wrong, and we got to address this Jake Elliott situation. I don't know what's going on. If y'all can figure out what is going on, please let me know. But we'll be right back, finishing up this edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. This episode of LOE is brought to you by our friends over at Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning of history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, and a brand new documentary-style course on Marxism, socialism, and communism. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Right now, go to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There is no cost at all, and it is easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. All right, everyone, finishing up this post-game edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. I'm your host, Gino Camilleri. Thank you to our everydayers for joining us here. Make sure you subscribe and like us wherever you're listening or watching the show. And for your second listen, make sure you go check out the new Locked On NFL. I'm joined every Monday with Tyler Rowland, the madman, to give you that double dose of espresso. And in the evening, you could check out The Barbershop with Tony Wiggins. But that's your second listen. Your first listen is here at Locked On Eagles for a sixth consecutive week. It's not Victory Monday, Victory Friday. How did the Eagles get it done? Well, they won 26-18 in a game where Jake Elliott, yes, Jake Elliott, the guy who has won this Eagles team so many football games in his tenure, might be broken. I'm not saying this to be funny at all. I am a huge advocate to go find somebody if you need any sort of mental help. Jake Elliott needs to see a sports psychologist. Like, I'm not trying to be funny in any sort of way. He has the yips. This is the situation where an MLB catcher just all of a sudden can't throw the ball back to the catcher. He was money from 50 yards for the entirety of his career. And now he can't hit him. He misses an extra point today in a game where 7 points could have been the denier. Could have been the reason you lost this game. Jake Elliott is a problem right now. And I don't know what's going on with special teams as a whole. They figured out the guys to return the ball, but all the rest of the parts of special teams are ugly. They continue to take gross penalties. They are missing field goals. Jake Elliott is going to be a problem in a big stage. Lucky it didn't happen tonight, but it is very concerning. It's very concerning because not only does missing those field goals take points off the board for you, it gives Washington really good field position, which they had multiple times tonight. But we have figured out that even if the Eagles' offense isn't working, that even if the special teams is playing subpar, that this Philadelphia Eagles defense in the year 2024 is good enough to win them any football game right now. Any football game. They allow 18 points tonight. 8 of them come in garbage time. They haven't allowed more than 2 offensive touchdowns since the Vietnam War, it feels like at this point. Since the bye week, they've been exceptional at getting pressure. Their sack numbers are through the roof. They've got 11 turnovers in the last 4 games. This is the method to win. When your defense plays this well, you can do anything. You can do anything. But the offense has to carry their weight. We saw all night long that if the offense didn't carry their weight and the defense played as good as you can ask them to, that teams can hang around. And I think that is the ultimate takeaway since the bye week, is that the Eagles, outside of these fourth quarters, will let teams hang around. They have to get that killer instinct from the get-go. They have to start fast. They've learned to finish and close against everybody at this point. Some very good wins since the bye week. You had this win with the Cincinnati win, dominating Dallas last week. 3 divisional games since the bye. 3 wins in those divisional games. We like to think of those as 2 wins because you give an L to a divisional opponent, you give a win to yourself. Essentially, you're 6-0 in the division. Go win the division. Because you're right on track. Right on track. Keeping pace with Detroit right now. That's the goal. The goal tonight was to secure the East. You got one step closer to doing that. You got one more chance against Washington where you're going to have to be a lot more locked in that game. But tonight, you got the job done. 6 in a row. Took away the passing game from Jaden Daniels. Took away the running game. Offense did just enough. Your defense got the job done. 1 game out of first place in the NFC. 9 games to rest until you got the Rams. Things are looking up for the Philadelphia Eagles. If you were to take us back to that post-game show after the 4th week where we thought all things were going awry, well, I wish I could go back in time and tell that Gino and all of our fans to relax, because everything is going to be just fine. The Eagles, first place in the NFC East, 8-2, taking this victory Friday and this weekend. Relax a little bit after that stressful game, but make sure you tune in to all your Locked On Eagles shows for the rest of the week. We'll be back next week, get into the Rams game, taking more of this Washington game. Stock up, stock down. Lou will be back from Florida. We'll take in all of this win and more. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe to the show. Check us out on Twitter. And as always, go Birds and fly, Eagles fly.